4 basic ingredients, and then you can customize it. So in front of me here, I have a food processor with 2 sticks of unsalted butter. Now the butter here is softened, and to that I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of confectioner's sugar. Confectioner's sugar is going to add the sweetness we need here. And to that I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of coarse salt, and it's really important when you're baking to use salt because it does add that extra element. It elevates the cookie. We need 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour, and this is, of course, it's spooned and leveled. Always use your measuring cups whenever you're baking. Those 4 ingredients, now you can customize in any way you'd like. And today I'm using dried cherries. So I have 3/4 of a cup. These are coarsely chopped dried cherries. You can see what they look like right here. You could use anything though. You could add 3/4 of a cup of nuts, dried fruits, apricots I have in front of me. You can make chocolate. My dad loves chocolate icebox cookies, so 3/4 of a cup of bittersweet chocolate and a little bit of cocoa powder to replace the flour in your batter will give a nice, rich, dark color. Pistachios are really nice around the holiday season. You can get that green and then the red from the cherries. Golden raisins, any of your favorite fruits or nuts you can add in to this recipe and make it your own. So I'm going to add that in right here, and then all you do is you pulse this together until it's one cohesive dough. It's super simple. So this looks like it's nicely combined. Still need to work it together a little bit, so I'm going to dump this out onto my work surface. And icebox cookies, they're very similar to shortbread cookies in that they have a high ratio of fat. Now, icebox cookies get their name because they're typically made and stored in the refrigerator before they're sliced and used. And that's also a really great thing with this recipe too, because you can make this in advance. You could stick it in your freezer, which is really great. This dough will last in the freezer for about 3 months, so you can get a head start on your holiday baking. Now, to shape this into a nice rounded shape, I'm going to use a piece of parchment to start. So take the dough, and what you're going to do is you're just going to wrap the parchment paper around the dough, kind of wrapping it. And then I like to take a ruler, something that's long and has a flat edge, and you can really use the ruler here. Place it firmly down at the base, right, like how I have it, and then pull the bottom sheet of parchment paper away from you. And what this does is it compresses the dough into a nice cylindrical shape, a nice rounded shape, and it squeezes out any air pockets that the dough might have. Isn't that cool? You can see how it's really starting to get that nice rounded shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this to a piece of plastic wrap. And this has to rest in the refrigerator now for about 30 minutes. Plastic wrap this so that the dough doesn't dry out in your refrigerator. You want to make sure that you really seal those ends. And now to keep a nice rounded shape while it rests in the refrigerator so it doesn't flatten out on the bottom, I like to use a paper towel roll. All you need to do, quick trick here, is to slice it down the center, or to cut it down the center with a pair of scissors. Just open this guy up, and what you have here is a nice cradle for your dough in the refrigerator so that while it's chilling, it doesn't flatten out on that bottom side. It will keep a nice rounded shape. So into the refrigerator for about 30 minutes until it's pretty firm, and then we're ready to slice, bake, and then enjoy. So the dough has been in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. It's pretty firm, which is what you want it to be. You don't want it to be so cold and so hard that when you slice it with a knife that it kind of shatters or crumbles into pieces. So give it maybe 5 minutes out on the counter before you are ready to slice and bake. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. Depending on how many cookies you want to bake, if you're going to do a couple batches, make sure that your racks in your oven are in the upper and lower third. But if you're only baking 1 tray of cookies, then bake in the middle of the oven. So I'm going to remove the plastic wrap here. You can see how nice the shape has stayed because of that cradle that we created. And now, using a sharp knife, something that has a thinner blade, you don't want to use a chef's knife here, anything wide. You want to cut your cookies into 1/4 inch rounds. See how nice and round that shape is, and that's even without a cookie cutter. Isn't that great? So now for something a little special, which is kind of nice for around the holidays, and kids usually like it. I'm going to embellish the sides with a little bit of sanding sugar. So just kind of roll the cookie disc around in a bowl of sanding sugar. Now, if you didn't have sanding sugar, you could totally use granulated sugar. You could use turbinado sugar. If you wanted to get real crazy, and you're doing this with your kids, you could certainly use a colored sugar. That would be fun too. And then you're just going to repeat this process, cutting off as many cookies as you need, garnishing with sugar if you'd like. So there you go. These are going into the oven, again, 15 to 18 minutes at 350 degrees until they're a nice dark golden brown color. Wrap up the rest of your dough and put it back in the fridge or the freezer for the next time. So the icebox cookies, they're out of the oven. They've cooled completely. Guys, I mean, what's better than a cookie around the holiday season? 4 ingredients plus whatever mix-ins you want to add in. And as always, guys, enjoy.